Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Um, as Lane mentioned, my name is Alex Fotsch. I'll be talking to you today about potatoes and microbes, specifically soil amendments, and how they can be used as a pathway to improve your productivity of your farm, the health of your soils, and also environmental sustainability. I realized in the last presentation of the day, keeping everybody here between happy hours, so I'll try to wrap up in like 20 minutes. A bit about my background. I'm the VP of Agriculture Operations at Locus. I manage a product development department. I'm originally from Northern California. I grew up on a family-owned and operated vineyard. Spent 10 years internationally working for sustainable biomaterials. And then most recently here at Locus, I also was recently chosen as one of the Forbes 30 under 30 in science, the only one in agriculture, so happy to see some representation there. I want to start today by talking about major challenges that are impacting growers. The first is environmental impacts. Many growers are facing issues related to soil erosion and degradation. This is negatively impacting their profitability, especially the off-run of nutrients in soil into waterways, polluting streams and rivers. Second is the increase in climatic variability. Over the past decade, particularly in California, we've had many years of drought. Obviously, this last year was a unique season. It was higher than average rainfall across the US, which pushed off plantings and negatively impacted yields for many growers. This is not only negatively impacting the environment, but also farm incomes. Increased operational costs, especially related to increased labor costs. Reduces the bottom line for the grower. Related to some of the environmental impacts I talked on earlier, we have variable yield and reduced crop quality that we've observed recently. These changes in the environment are creating additional stressors, abiotic stressors for the crop that is challenging them as far as their profitability, and then also through single-use mechanism products, seeing decreased efficacy of these products. The third major bucket that is negatively impacting growers is increased regulatory scrutiny. This from EPA, more stringent regulatory hurdles to get products to market, compliance issues associated on your farms. Growers are also under the scrutiny of greenhouse gas emissions. Within the US, 30% of emissions are related to agriculture, which is being closely scrutinized. And then last is a shift in consumer taste and preferences to organic, which is growing significantly year over year. But it's not all doom and gloom. I want to talk today about how microbes can be one tool of a number of tools to improve each of these, and I'll talk through how they can be used so. The first, as far as soil health. These microbes that are typically used by Locus and a number of our competitors are known to improve the quality of the soil. Not only the reducing compaction in the soil, but increasing the aeration, reducing erosion into waterways. By increasing the health of the soil, you increase the water use efficiency of these crops. Many of these microbes secrete hormones, interact with the plant. There's a lot of signaling to improve the root growth, get those roots deeper, and increase the amount of fibrous roots that can more efficiently take up this water. Secondly, nutrient availability. Many of the microbes that are applied in agriculture are used either to fix nitrogen out of the atmosphere. They can solubilize phosphorus, putting it into a plant available soluble form. And then finally, these microbes support a healthy microbiome. I'll talk about it in a minute, but you can think of these as plant probiotics, similar to probiotics for human consumption. The second benefit that is a boon to growers through the applications of these products is grower profitability. These microbes are specifically targeted to improve yields of the crops, also the quality of the crops themselves. In potatoes, higher value of marketable crop as a proportion of the total. Second, by reducing the amount of stress that the crop is under, you increase its abiotic resistance, things like heat tolerance in the field. And then finally, these products act as another tool for the grower's IPM approach, so additional technologies that provide growers real value. The third bucket that these products are improving grower profitability is, are benefit to growers is as far as sustainability initiatives. By improving the quality of the soil, you reduce the amount of leaching into waterways and keeping those microbes in the soil where they can be best utilized by the crop. Additionally, these products are low toxicity, which is a benefit for worker safety. They typically don't have the same amount of re-entry interval that is commonly associated with traditional chemicals. And additionally, they can improve, I'll talk about this later, but the amount of carbon capture that these plants innately pull carbon out of the atmosphere and deposit it in the soil. Last, through more efficient nitrogen utilization, you have reduction in the amount of nitrous oxide into the atmosphere. And by keeping an aerobic soil environment, a reduction in the amount of methane emissions from the soil itself. These aren't theoretical technologies or aspirational. Locus is one manufacturer. However, many of our competitors in the space are already helping growers realize these benefits today. Now, as I mentioned earlier, soil amendment microbes, you can look at them as plant probiotics. And if you're not familiar with probiotics, these are essentially good cultures of bacteria that are consumed by humans. A couple examples of them, they can either be taken in pill form. Yogurt, for example, has beneficial probiotics. Kombucha is another product that's recently gained popularity. But you can look at these as good bacteria that colonize the digestive system in your gut. They regulate everything from the nutrient status for you to absorb that. They also regulate your mood, and additionally, protect you from disease and can protect you from allergies. You can think of your digestive system similar to the rhizosphere in agriculture, that being the area between the soil and the interaction between the plant and the microbes. These plant probiotics regulate the availability of nutrients in the soil, and they improve the abiotic resistance of the plant to certain stressors in the environment, as well as regulate many of the greenhouse gas pathways that are derived from agricultural production. Now, I want to talk about 3 recent innovations in microbial technologies. We'd like to say at Locus that these technologies, being soil amendments, microbial soil amendments, are looked at as variable at best and snake oil at worst. I'd like to dispel that rumor and talk about 3 specific things that have been improved recently to reduce the variability of these products. The first is microbe selection. It's really critical that you choose a microbe based on the specific pain point that you're trying to alleviate for each grower. For example, a nitrogen fixer, if you need to get more nitrogen in your soil. That's very common with rhizobia and soybeans. But also you need to choose these microbes based on the local growing environment, specifically the soil type that you're working in, and adjust rate as a function of that. This will ensure a high degree of success, efficacy of your product. Second is microbial viability. If you think about yogurt, for example, you wouldn't want your yogurt sitting in unrefrigerated conditions for 6 months to a year and then eat it, or you wouldn't enjoy it anyway if you did. Same thing with soil microbes. You need to ensure the integrity of the product from fermenter to the field. So there's many post-fermentation processes that have been developed recently, such as improved formulations, cold chain delivery, or on-site fermentation of these microbes. At the end of the day, it's critical that your product meets label spec, and the only way to ensure that is to make sure that you have these post-fermentation processes to ensure delivery to your field. The final innovation is food source. These microbes are live, living organisms, and to ensure viability, they need to have a food source similar to your plant needing that food source. One such example would be yeast, which many of you are familiar with yeast fermentation in wine, for example. Well, yeast like sugar, and so pairing the right microorganism with the right food source is very critical. And as we found at Locus, reduces a number of the variability in product efficacy that we've observed. Again, I want to emphasize that these technologies are not aspirational. They're being realized today, but it's critical that they fit into your existing growers' practices. They're another tool alongside conventional fertilizers, not to replace them, but to enhance the effectiveness of these products. and critical that they work across a wide variety of growing environments across multiple seasons. Now, I know we're all familiar with photosynthesis, but I want to talk about the mutualistic symbiotic benefit between microbes and the plants themselves. As we all know, plants fix sugars, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, use the sunlight. These sugars are then translocated throughout the plant to areas which will benefit the crop for additional growth, depending on the stage of the crop. But what you may not know is that up to 20% of the sugars that are fixed by the plant are exuded through the root system. This may be a surprise, but these relationships have been built over thousands and thousands of years, and we're just beginning to understand how to maximize the benefit there. Now, the plant exudes these sugars to attract beneficial bacteria as their partners. In turn, these beneficial bacteria do everything from providing the plant with nitrogen, such as the rhizobia example, or another example you may be familiar with is mycorrhiza, which is an endophytic fungi that actually lives within the plant. It will take nutrients and water from outside of the plant, essentially acting as an extended rooting system, and bring that into the crop. It's a really beautiful relationship, and one that we're trying to work to improve at Locus by providing more beneficial bacteria to increase this positive feedback loop between the microbe and the plant itself. I'm going to talk about benefits for the plant associated with these microbial technologies, starting with early season, then talking about mid-season benefits, and ultimately end of season at yield. It's really critical that, particularly for these soil-applied soil amendments, that you apply them at the time of planting or close to just after the time of planting, where you're going to be able to realize the maximum benefit from this product. Typically, we see improvements in terms of quicker improved germination. You can see an example on the right-hand side of a field that we had in Southern California. A couple weeks after planting, there's a lot of signaling back between the microbes and the plants saying this is a healthy environment, you can grow. And so you can see quick germination there. By improving germination early in the season, you improve stand count, which directly impacts your theoretical yield. By getting that crop established earlier, you're also moving that crop from its vegetative cycle to its reproductive cycle, reducing the time to market. You can see two examples here. Again, some data with one of our cooperators in Southern California, improved emergence, and then also stand count on the bottom. I should mention at this point that the product that I'll be talking about here is called Rhizolizer. It's our commercially available soil amendment. It's a combination of Trichoderma harazium and Bacillus amylocaficiens. The Trichoderma acts as an extension of the rooting system for the plant, whereas the Bacillus is a well-known solubilizer of inorganic phosphorus, making it available for the plant. So these two work harmoniously together with the plant to improve the productivity of the plant itself. Now moving on to some mid-season benefits. Once you establish that crop early in the season, you have a more developed root system. Those roots will typically grow deeper, but they'll also have more fibrous roots. Now, the depth is important for the water use. The plant is searching for more water, more roots, they can pull up that water more efficiently. But the fibrous roots are really responsible for the uptake of these nutrients. And so that's typically where we see healthier, brighter, more fibrous roots through the applications of these technologies. If you can get the crop to establish itself earlier, in the case of potatoes, you increase the canopy closure of the crop, reducing the weed pressure, which reduces your operational cost, one less spray in the field. It also, from a more robust rooting system, you have better nutrient utilization and uptake. And here's an example of, on the right, you can see a graph of the available P in the soil that has been solubilized by the microbes. On the left, the increase in stem count, which increases, again, your potential yield for the crop. Now, late season benefits. This is by far the most critical focus for the grower. This relates to yield and also crop quality. You can see two different graphs from our trialing this past season in Idaho. So by getting that crop off to a better start, by increasing the theoretical yield, you often realize improvements in this yield and quality at the end of the season. And it's not only a function of the total amount of yield that the plant is realizing, but also reducing the amount of coals that are unharvestable and therefore a waste to the plant and have to be dug under. By improving the plant's general growth, you're also increasing the abiotic resistance to withstand stress, which is critical at the end of the season, particularly if you have these weather events that may negatively impact your crop. By harvesting earlier, you have a better chance of getting your crop out of the field and less coals. You can see on the bottom graph, I've broken up the total yield between the marketable and the dark green and light green, and you can see how we have just about as many 2 to 8 ounces as compared to the untreated growers practice, where you have the mid-size and the jumbos. Also want to point out a reduction in the number of coals for the treated rhizolizer on the right-hand side. Now, a lot of the feedback that we get from growers, we've only been working this for a couple of years now. As I mentioned, we're a startup, but growers need to see consistency across multiple geographies, multiple soil types, and multiple seasons. We've run hundreds of studies with this product at Locus, dozens of which have been with potatoes. This is a combination of internal research studies, grower research studies that we conduct data on, collect data with ourselves. Also working with contract research outfits, independently collecting this data, and then some leading agriculture universities. So you can see a combination here of chipping potatoes, seed potatoes, and other types across multiple geographies, multiple years, oftentimes sustained improvements year to year. But additionally, you can see that there's a benefit as far as the different soil types, and we see this broad application across different soil types. However, it must be noted that we do have levers to pull in terms of timing of application, rate of application, to maximize the effectiveness of this product. I've talked so far about, specifically the soil health benefits of microbes, improving the aeration, reducing the compaction in the soil, also supporting a healthy microbiome. I've talked about turning these plants into more efficient photosynthetic pumps, and now I want to talk about the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from these technologies. By increasing the plant's ability to sequester this carbon, it deposits these sugars as microaggregates in the soil, which is a stable form of carbon that can then be stored in the soil, increasing the permanence of these carbon sources. Secondly, through more efficient use of your nitrogen, particularly with inorganic N, the nitrogen that's not taken up by the plant or put into a stable form in the soil is either leached out or emitted as nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is 300 times as impactful a greenhouse gas as carbon. That's 300 times. Finally, by reducing the anaerobic environment of the soil, this anaerobic environment often kills the bacteria, and bacteria release methane, which is about 60 times as impactful a greenhouse gas as carbon. So you can see that by improving the health of the soil, by improving the productivity of the crop, and improving or reducing the amount of greenhouse gases, it's a win-win-win for the health of your soil, for your profitability as a grower, and then finally for the environment. This is particularly timely now, as there's a lot of focus on carbon credits and carbon markets in Europe, where the new Green Deal just passed. This potentially will open up a new revenue stream for growers, which isn't realized today, but you may have heard, for example, Indigo just received a huge investment from FedEx for being able to reduce their carbon footprint. Airlines, transportation companies are all paying attention to this, and this could be a new income stream that growers are not realizing today, but very soon. Last, I just want to point out that we're not the only game in town. These technologies have been understood for decades. We feel that it's been a deployment issue, but there's a lot of other good companies in the space, many of which are here today. There is no silver bullet. It's going to be a collection of technologies, a collection of companies to improve our environment, grower profitability. And so I just want to give a nod to other companies who are also working towards the same initiative that we are, which is starting and ending with serving the grower. Thank you very much for attending my presentation. Again, my name is Alex Fotsch. I'm the VP of Agricultural Operations at Locus Agricultural Solutions, and I'll be right there to talk to you after the stage if you have any questions. Thank you very much.